Hello there friends and welcome. For today's Elden Ring guide we have a very powerful and quite thematic Winter Witch build, fully inspired by everyone's favorite RANNI the Witch, with a full focus on the best cold spells in the game. A build so good you can even all-hit run the final boss of the DLC, capable of constant high damage and even face tanking while just wearing robes. It's a blast to play and you'll have a cold spell for everything: single target, long range, area of effect, lingering damage. And of course, by virtue of being an intelligence caster, you'll still get to cast all the other sorceries in the game. So get ready to turn enemies into popsicles with our Winter Witch RANNI build. First, I wanna cover how to play our Winter Witch and the best ice spells. Starting with the best of them all, Zaymor, or is it Zamor, Ice Storm. Not just the best ice spell, but also one of the best spells in the entire game. This spell is absolutely amazing and is your best way of dealing damage and defeating almost all of the hyper-aggressive DLC bosses. It can be charged for higher damage and effect and will create a huge freezing tornado. And is great for multiple reasons. First, the freezing tornado will constantly deal damage to enemies inside it. It's not just once per cast. Second, because it has an area of effect increased when charging, you can hit the enemies that try to get away from you. Third, it will inflict the very nasty Frostbite debuff on the enemies, which of course removes a huge chunk of their HP and increases the damage they take from all sources, including from subsequent ice storms. Last but not least, it also deals stance damage per tick, so repeated casts will be enough to stance break anything, even CONSORT RADAHN, which of course means a free critical hit and enough time to heal your character, and even force them to skip some of their special moves. And it even costs a very small amount of FP, even stamina, for everything it does, so it really is an amazing spell. For our second best cold spell we have a Talismans Blade. This is your best tool against enemy packs, because it just freezes everything to submission, as the great sword you conjure hits a very wide arc. And it even fires a cold projectile at the end of the swipe, so can hit enemies that move away from you. And like Ice Storm, it can also inflict Frostbite. The only downside is both the FP and the stamina costs are higher than Ice Storm, and honestly, for a lot of bosses Ice Storm is the way to go. For our third best spell we have RANNI's Dark Moon. I know it's not exactly a cold spell, it's a full moon sorcery instead, but come on, it is a RANNI spell and will inflict Frostbite, so perfect for a Winter Witch type of character. But anyways, this is a must-have spell for any intelligence caster, as it will debuff the enemy's magic resistance, which means they'll take higher magic damage. And all of your cold spells do actually deal magical damage, as there's no cold or ice damage type in the game. We have lightning and fire, but not cold, amusingly enough. And of course it's very easy to get even multiple casts of this as soon as battle starts against some bosses. For our last true cold spell we have Glintstone Ice Crag. I'm not really a fan of it because the stamina cost is really high for some reason, and the damage is nowhere near as good as Ice Storm or Moonblade. It's just that it's the only cold spell you have that can hit at long range, even if it doesn't have as high a range as some other spells. But here's the thing, this character will still be an intelligence caster, which means you are not restricted to cold spells at all. You can still go for all the other powerful sorceries in the game, including the highly OP Impenetrable Thorn to easily delete bosses, well, before they nerf it anyways. So don't feel restricted to cold spells only, unless you want. There's also stuff like Shard Spiral against Bale the Dragon, because he's constantly jumping far away from you, and the amazing Terra Magica for buffing spell damage. As a matter of fact, I already have a best intelligence caster guide you can check to the side here, where I cover all the other generic sorceries. This one was mostly focused into the ice spells, of course. Now you might be asking, how exactly are you gonna do an all-hit run with a robe-wearing caster and spam your spells? Well, as always, it's all about our favorite Ash of War, Endure. You'll always want to activate this before casting, ideally, your Ice Storms, because it will make you virtually unstaggerable for the duration, which is short, and also highly increase your damage negation on top of that. So the main combo is very simple: Endure, Charged, or a normal Ice Storm, Endure, repeat. Don't forget you can also use Endure to heal your character if you find your HP getting low. The same for FP. And for even higher face tanking potential, we'll be combining Endure with the Holy Ground Ash of War, ideally on a lightweight shield, the Rickety Shield. Holy Ground will create a huge sigil beneath your character that highly increases all of your damage negation, stacking with all sources including Golden Vow and other buffs, and even provides amazing regeneration. It's of course amazing to combine with Terra Magica, because this character can and should just remain rooted to the spot while spamming your Ice Storms or other spells if you want. It's actually very easy to get both of these effects going, because remember, before entering a boss arena, you can cast both outside the boss door and they will persist once you enter the arena. Second, a lot of bosses have rather long startups for their second phases, including CONSORT RADAHN, the final boss of the DLC. For example, as soon as he goes for his Holy Explosion in the second phase, you can immediately go for Holy Ground, Endure, Terra Magica, and heal your character, Endure, and start spamming your Ice Storm, or whatever other spells you want. This way, even with just dresses or the Winter Witch robe, you'll have a good enough time. Now that we know how to play and the best spells and skills for our Winter Witch, let's get into level up and stat allocation. Intelligence, of course, is your most important stat for the highest spell damage. 80 is ideal for the soft cap. 10 strength will be necessary to properly wield the best staff for this character. 60 vigor, of course, is necessary if you want to be a true face-tanking Winter Witch Ice God. Besides that, something like 30 to 40 mind is ideal to properly cast some of your spells without having to constantly activate your FP flask. Lastly, we have Faith. It's not necessary, but can help this character a lot. 25 will let you cast the best Faith buffs, which include higher damage and higher damage negation, regeneration, all stacking with Holy Ground, and Endure, plus the OP Impenetrable Thorns sorcery. Not a cold spell, but it is the best spell in the game, I'm afraid. And honestly, if you're already at 25, you might as well go for 27, because it lets you cast the ultimate Holy Damage Negation buff, an amazing tool for the final boss of both the DLC and the main game. And well, the rest of the points can just go into mind and even more intelligence if you want. Endurance is not necessary at all, assuming you want to go with robes. Even starter endurance will still let you achieve medium load, and well, you have enough defenses to face tank everything. Now let us cover gear for our Winter Witch RANNI build. You definitely want a Magic Misericord dagger for the highest criticals, as some of your spells like Ice Storm will stance break enemies. Plus, of course, it's the weapon you'll have Endure for proper spell spamming and face tanking. Besides that, on the other hand, any Sacred Seal if you're going with Faith for the Faith buffs. And for our main staff, Luzat's Glintstone as always. The extra FP increase barely matters for Ice Storm because it doesn't cost that much anyways. For RANNI's Dark Moon and Moonblade, it's a bit more annoying, but you can handle it. Of course, you can always go for the Carrion Regal Scepter if you prefer, it's just not as high damage. For the ice spells anyways. Followed by the Rickety Shield, the lightest shield of them all, with very little requirements, for Holy Ground. Now as far as armor, the Snow Witch hat is not only the most thematic, but also the best, because it does increase the damage of your cold spells. Just remember, RANNI's Dark Moon is not a cold spell, but Ice Storm and Adula's Moonblade are. And well, besides that, in the spirit of doing a RANNI build, I just went with her set, the Snow Witch robes and skirt, followed by any bracers you want, so long as you're under medium load. Of course, if you wanted to really min-max, you would just go for the heaviest armor for higher damage negation and drink the Winged Crystal Tear on your Wondrous Physick flask for medium or light rolling. It's just that, well, something like Bull Goat won't really fit a RANNI build, but hey, you can go with it if you want, as only the hat itself actually increases cold damage. And of course, you can always use Alberic's set if you want the highest damage with Impenetrable Thorns. Now let's cover Talismans. Dragon Crest is essential, the best version for the highest physical damage negation, followed by Godfrey's Icon if you want the highest damage with your charged Ice Storms. Just remember, you cannot charge a Duelist Moonblade, Glintstone Ice Crag, or even Ranni's Dark Moon, so they won't work with Godfrey's icon. I also have Radagon's icon here, especially because we are charging Ice Storm for faster casting. You could potentially also go for the beloved Stardust, but it does highly increase the damage you take. And well, unless you're really quick on your finger and know how to properly play this character, it can backfire hard. Besides that, you can go for higher damage or more damage negation. For higher damage at no downside, we have the Graven Mass Talisman. For higher damage, but way lesser than the beloved Stardust penalty, we have the Magic Scorpion Charm, and of course you can combine it with Graven Mass if you want. Or just go for another one of the damage negation talismans against elemental damage like Golden Braid for Holy, Flame Drake for Fire, and so on, depending on the boss you are fighting. I personally prefer this choice because it makes you even tankier. Because frankly, the damage of Ice Storm is good enough already, or Impenetrable Thorns. For consumables, just the Boiled Crab for higher physical damage negation. And well, Uplifting Aromatic can help, but you don't really need it. Now let's cover our Wondrous Physick Mix Flask effects. The Opaline Heart tier is as always a must-have for the highest damage negation to all sources, followed by the Magic Shrouding Crack tier for higher magical damage, and as I said before, cold spells deal magical damage. Of course, if you wanna go all out on damage, replace Opaline for the Blood-Sucking Cracked tier. It's just more dangerous this way. For Great Rune, Smorgos as always for the huge bonus to hit points. Well, alright friends, so this was it for our all-hit run, RANNI the Witch Winter Witch build. If you found this guide useful as always, please remember to like, subscribe, and also consider becoming a channel member if you can. I truly appreciate your support. Thank you for watching and see you next time, friends.